Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to FP1 and welcome back to the Post Podium Podcast after the Turkish Grand Prix. And really it's a collab which I think has been in the making for some time now. I'm surprised we've not done the collaboration yet. I'm here with Sir Meerkat from the MotoMeerkat channel. Mate, how you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you, William. I'm super excited to be on the channel. As you said, I don't know how we haven't done something together yet. It just sort of never really worked out, but I'm super excited to be here and super excited to have a little natter with you.
Yeah, brilliant. And obviously the Turkish Grand Prix, it was interesting. I kind of enjoyed it. I kind of thought we were all going to be hyped up for it after, 9 seasons or so off the calendar. And then, it really was a nice, pleasant surprise. Obviously, we'll get to Lance Stroll in a little bit, but I think we've got to start with Lewis Hamilton this weekend, taking his 7th World Drivers' Championship. It's a stat that I'd never thought we'd see, but, hats off to him. And I think everyone was a little bit emotional with the radio broadcast he gave after the race. And what a race for him to do it as well. I mean, the way he took those intermediates from, I forget, was it like lap 17, something like that? I forget what lap they went on to into, but it was crazy. What was your kind of take on Lewis's whole weekend this weekend? Well,
I mean, the whole weekend in general was pretty poor for both the Mercedes, wasn't it? They just couldn't seem to get the tyres to turn on, especially during like the wet quali and whatnot. But then during the race, I don't understand how some people can still say that he's not the GOAT and that it's just the car. If he was in the Williams, he'd be terrible. No, you're just absolutely chatting. He is incredible. What he did in that race was amazing. To come from so far down, starting in a pretty bad position, and being so far off the lead. Obviously, as you said, Stroll pulled that gap at the start, and he was able to claw all that back and then take the win to take the championship. It it summed Lewis up, didn't it? It was incredible to watch. And although maybe you would have been a bit more happy to see someone who wouldn't usually have won the race win, to see him do that was amazing and fit in with the storyline of him winning the 7th championship very nicely. So fair play to him.
Yeah, and you made the point, yes, okay, he's in the best car, but look at Valtteri Bottas this weekend. The guy got out-qualified by an Alfa Romeo. I said it in the instant reactions. I was like, it looks like Bottas and Vettel have swapped round, because he was spending more time backwards than he was actually forward. I think it was 6 spins, and then you got Lewis, who managed to take those tyres so far, and just incredible tyre management from him. The only one that could really match him was Perez, who we know is great at preserving his tyres anyway. So absolutely crazy. Now, moving on to, obviously, Hamilton winning a race is something we all kind of expect from an F1 weekend. But moving on to things we don't really expect, at least in 2020, is Ferrari being competitive. And they were this weekend. I mean, qualifying was a little bit of a blip, but it was for quite a lot of teams. But over practice, they looked quick. And then after an incredible first lap, Vettel, I don't know whether you've seen the video of Vettel cutting his way through the field on the first lap. It was like watching the Vettel of old. It was amazing. And fair play to them this weekend. They needed a weekend like that, given that they're fighting with AlphaTauri, let's be honest, this year. That's really what they needed, and just, wow.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. It was very nice to see, to be fair, to actually, because you get to the point where you just feel bad for them, don't you? You're just like, oh, just come on, just do well. Just do this well this once. And they did. They were right up there, as you said, in practice. They were doing super well. People were saying, stop the count, when we saw that those two were at the top of the timing sheets. Then in quali, it didn't really happen, and I've heard that Charles Leclerc voice note of him amazed that they were 6 seconds off. I mean, it was crazy. The rain just really spaced everyone out, didn't it? But then, the quali didn't do amazingly, but sort of what we've come to expect this year. But then in the race, as you said, both Seb and Charles both absolutely carved through the field. I mean, Charles didn't have a great start as Vettel did, but he managed to pick it up further on in the race. But yeah, it was so good to see Seb. I think everyone was backing Seb for that podium, and him actually being able to get it in the final section of corners was, although sad for Charles to lose out on it, amazing to see Seb finally get back on the podium.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is Charles, let's suppose, even if Ferrari are awful this year, he's got several more podiums before he retires. He's got probably loads more race wins to come as well. Seb, he's coming towards the end of his career now. Obviously, he's got this lifeline with Aston Martin next year. But this was his opportunity to get one of maybe his last podiums in Formula 1. And I think he definitely took the opportunity with both hands. And you know, I was screaming on the last lap because I thought there was a point where obviously Albon was very quick, then Vettel was very, very quick, and it looked like Vettel might get the podium, and then Charles came in and passed, and I was like, oh, okay, well, there we go then. But yeah, to get it on like you said, on the last section of the track was just brilliant. And I find it interesting that it's the one weekend that Binotto wasn't there. I did enjoy that. The one time Binotto doesn't show up to the circuit, Ferrari are competitive. So
really, I saw someone saying online about that Seb was joking about it after the race with the media people, saying that maybe he just shouldn't turn up anymore because they seem to do really well when he's not there.
Well, funny is, I think he's already agreed not to show up for Bahrain. So
Really?
yeah, I don't know how true that is, but I've seen someone saying from Italian media that Binotto's going to stay out of Bahrain as well. So you never know. You never know.
See, imagine. I mean, Bahrain is like a proper quick track, so if somehow they do well there as well, then it's definitely got to come down to Binotto there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good track for Ferrari as well. I mean, Charles Leclerc got pole there last year, didn't he? But we'll move on to Bahrain a little bit later in the episode. But let's we spoke about Alex Albon briefly. Let's talk about him today, because this is usually the segment of the podcast where I go and say, right, where did Alex cock up this weekend? But no, I can't really do it this time. Which I'm happy to say. I know there's a lot of people that seem to think that I absolutely despise Alex Albon. I don't. I think he's a lovely guy, but he's just not been the best of drivers this year. But to be fair, this weekend we did see a bit of a change in the guard, or a change in the form anyway, and he did seem to have that pace. He was closer to Max over the whole weekend, and then finished ahead of him. Max had an awful race on Sunday, so it was good to see Albon with his mojo back, with his confidence back. He seemed a lot happier over the whole weekend as well. I thought even in the run up to it, he seemed a lot chirpier, a lot happier, like he had found something, and it did seem to come across it over the entire weekend, really.
Yeah, I agree. He definitely seemed much more of a happy chap in the interviews and stuff that I saw. Because, usually he's always a bit doom and gloom of, oh, this messed up this time, and this messed up this time, as you said. But, yeah, he actually managed to pull it together pretty well at Turkey. So I'm going to go down and say that's probably one of his favourite tracks on the calendar now, because he did all right and didn't manage to, as you said, cock something up. It was actually Verstappen that was the one that was cocking everything up this weekend. But yeah, well done to Albon of actually putting in a decent performance and getting some solid points for the team. It did look at one point like he could be on for a podium, but that kind of slipped away and didn't really come to fruition. But still well done to him, and I'm excited to see how he does do at the next round, and whether he's sort of able to build this momentum and carry on the form and really fight to keep that seat for next year. Yeah, and
that's an interesting point as well, because really, I think we're all surprised by how much patience Red Bull are giving Alex. I think given everything we've seen, it's got to the point where everyone was like, oh, come on, Red Bull, you got to go easy, and you've got to go easy at the start of the season. And now we're like, Red Bull, what are you doing? Why haven't you thrown him out of the car yet? I think the shift has completely switched over. And yes, there's all this talk about, oh yeah, they've got Thai investors and they want it. But it is good to see Red Bull giving their drivers confidence, I think, and we're finally seeing that now with Alex. Now hopefully, and I said this after Magellan was proved wrong, but hopefully this means he'll be able now to kind of keep that momentum going, and hopefully for a more positive weekend or weekends in Bahrain. So but let's talk about Max Verstappen as well, because there was a point when I think Alex was either on for a podium or even on for a win, in that second phase where he was so much quicker, pulling in seconds per lap. I thought, we're going to get to Parc Fermé, Albon's going to pull up in first place, he'll take his helmet off, and it'll be Max Verstappen. Because it looked like it was completely swapped. Max was spinning, he was making unnecessary mistakes. I think the one on Perez, where that move, it just wasn't on. It wasn't on. It was, I think I said it yesterday in my instant reactions, but desperate was the word that I'd sum up Max's weekend. It just... he's come away from it and said, we just move on. It wasn't a good weekend at all. And for someone as well who was on the pace all the way through Friday and through Q1 and Q2 as well, he had a poor start, fell behind. Then after that, it just didn't seem to get any better.
Yeah, he's got a kind of his own sort of wet driving style, isn't he? You're watching, everyone's on boards, and a lot of people were being like very tentative with the wheel, just sort of holding the car. Max is bloody wrestling the thing, like throwing it about the corners, trying to get it round. And I mean, it definitely worked. He was doing very well on pace, especially for qualifying, and got up there, split the two racing... Did he split the two racing points at the front? Yeah, they did.
In qualifying, yeah, he did.
Yeah, okay, just going to make sure I got that right. And then, yeah, as you said, at the start, just bogged down, didn't he? But to be fair, both the Red Bulls bogged down pretty badly at the start, and he was able to defend okay, but then, as you said, he was just like, wasn't really Max Verstappen, was he? It was just weird. He was being very aggressive, which we like to see from Max, but then often just being far too overly aggressive, especially in those conditions. And with the move you said on Perez, all of us, me and all the boys that are watching the TV, were like, what is he doing? That move up the inside was never on. He got it all on the slippery stuff on the inside, sent him way out wide, and as soon as you hit that part further than the curbs, he was a goner. He was clearly a goner, and yeah, immediately straight round, 180, and luckily he was able to carry on, and he kept out the wall, which, fair play to him, that takes some skill as well, but it just didn't look like Max this weekend, did it? It just really didn't.
Yeah, I agree. I've said it before, and I usually get an onslaught from hate from the Dutch fans, but I don't care. Come at me. I don't give a shit, to be honest. But Max, I think, when he makes one mistake over a weekend, it really hits him hard, and he doesn't really forget it, and that tension, that frustration, it builds up, and it only leads to more mistakes. I think we've seen it a lot with Albon as well. When he has a bit of a poor weekend to start with, that kind of mentality goes with him throughout the whole weekend. With Max, it's frustration as well. As he got more and more frustrated with the car, with not being where he wanted to be, with not being on pole on Saturday as well, I think that's really where it all started. Yep. He just went for those desperate moves. I think he knew this was the weekend where he could really take the fight to Mercedes. Mercedes was seeming to have an off weekend, and this was his opportunity to take a fight. Racing Point, realistically, were last year's Mercedes, a car that by the end of the season that they beat. So he knew that this was they were effectively easy targets, especially since he's good in the rain as well. He should have been the favourite to win the race, and I think that all kind of just built up, and as he got more and more frustrated, those mistakes kept coming in. But let's talk about Racing Point, because they were the stars of the show. Yeah. I think it was the team that everyone was cheering for. Never have I seen so many people saying positive things about Lance Stroll. I mean, I guess this is what Mercedes dominance does to you, I think. But, fair play to Lance. I think for someone as well who was awful at qualifying and notoriously has had qualifying being his weak point. I think last year was the biggest example of that. He was so far off Perez at the start of the season. For someone to then come through in a difficult qualifying session and get pole and beat out the likes of Max Verstappen, who in the wet is amazing and is very quick around one lap as well, that's just something else. And Racing Point, you've got to feel for them. I think they did the right thing with strategy. They had to go into split strategies and put Lance and Perez on alternating strategies, because if one of them had gone... Let's flip it the other way. Imagine if staying out on the tyres, I think Perez said as well, if he'd had one more lap, his tyres would have exploded. That was a very real possibility. And I think at the time, putting Stroll, even though Stroll said he didn't want it, from outside looking in, it looked like going on to another set of inters was probably the right thing to do. So they had to split the strategies, and sadly that just meant that Stroll didn't get the opportunity to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. The Racing Points did have to do that. They did have to split it. It was looking very on-off whether the rain was going to come at the end or not, and that would have really blown people's stuff out of proportion and really would have messed up all different strategies. So you can see why they had to do it, but so frustrating for Stroll. And I think also the fact that he was in that commanding position in first with those inters on, and they made him come in for new inters. He didn't want it, and then the performance was worse than the previous tyres he had. I think it just sort of switched him off into a negative mental space of just sort of, they've ruined my race here, they've ruined it, I'm going to lose it. And then he just started falling back and back and back and back. And once he started going, there was no stopping, and he fell back to, down the bottom end of the points, which is so sad to see, because, as you were saying, so many positive comments for Stroll over this weekend. Like, I don't particularly dislike Stroll, but I don't particularly like Stroll, and I was watching that qualifying on my feet shouting, come on Stroll, just absolutely hamming it up for him. I was enjoying it so much, just to see someone that's not usually up there absolutely smashing it, and someone who, as you said, used to be so bad at qualifying and would always make it up in the race, managed to beat out Perez in a very difficult wet session. So fair play to him. Very unlucky with the race. I think he definitely could have won that if the strategies and everything had linked up correctly, but I mean, what can you do? He's got to move on. I think he's got to take more inspiration from that, of the fact of he can do it, he can get on pole, he can win the race if everything works out together. This time it didn't, but in future it definitely could. So I'm super excited to see Stroll and Perez get better throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I still think it was nice to see Perez on the podium again. Like Vettel, one of those drivers that, well, he might even have a seat next year. We really don't know. And it's looking like he will be the Hulkenberg of 2020. So it was nice to see Checo get up the podium again. It would have been lovely to see him win and really kind of stick the middle finger up to Racing Point. But hey, what can you do? Still amazing for Checo, who hasn't actually been on the podium since 2018, has he? So yeah, let's look ahead then. We've got Bahrain in a couple of weeks' time. It's obviously the season's winding. There's 3 races left only. It feels really, really weird. But let's get into some predictions. So, could you give me a top 3 for the race and also a bold prediction for the weekend?
Top 3 for Bahrain. I think we're not going to have the craziness from Turkey. I think we should all probably brace ourselves for a not particularly interesting race at Bahrain. Knowing the desert, probably not going to be a wet one. But you never know. I mean, we could.
It rained in Abu Dhabi testing last year. So if it can rain in Abu Dhabi, it can rain in Bahrain.
There you go. Positive vibes there. I like to see that. Well,
there we go.
But yeah, I'm going to go back to the negative vibes and say it's probably going to be pretty similar to what we would usually expect. A pole position. Hamilton or Bottas. Who would it be? I'm just going to go with Hamilton for the pole. Easy one. I think he's going to do it. The usual. And then I think the top 3, I think Max might have another bit of a not an awful weekend, not as bad as we saw this weekend, but I don't think he's going to get on the podium. So I'm going to leave that 3rd place spot off, but I'm going to go with Hamilton for the win, Bottas for the 2nd place, and then who do we reckon's going to do well? I'm going to go with a rogue one for the 3rd place. I'm going to go for Lando Norris getting a 3rd position.
Ooh. Okay,
a little bit
interesting.
Of a wild card there.
Nice. Okay, I was thinking the same lines with you with Verstappen. I don't think Verstappen's going to get the pole, or going to get on the podium this year. Or this year. I've gone. God,
next
weekend.
You really hate him. All the guys that stand
God,
hate you.
Yeah, we're gone. That's it. You know what? Verstappen, he's not going to win a world championship either. I think he's the shittest driver on the grid. There we go. It's all gone wrong. It's all gone wrong. My sub count just drops. Oh, blimey.
0 subs.
Yeah, there we go. I'm so honoured to be doing a video with a YouTuber with so much more subscribers than me now after that comment. I'm gonna go for Hamilton, Bottas, and then Albon in P3. I'm gonna pray that this, the good weekend that he's just had in Turkey will keep going with him, and hopefully we'll get him into a 3rd spot. I think I'm a bit too optimistic, but you never know. I'm going to say Albon P3. Bold prediction.
I'd like to see it, but I'm not sure it's going to happen, mate.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think of a bold prediction now. I mean, my bold prediction could be Albon getting on the podium. That is a bold prediction this year. But I'm going to say Ferrari to continue their upward form. I think they're going to keep pushing through. They're going to... do I want to say fight for a podium? Yes, let's say they're fight for a podium. We'll go with that. But yeah, we'll call it a day there. Make sure you do go and subscribe to my... Yeah, okay, he doesn't like that comment.
He's gone mental. He's gone mental. Bahrain, you think Ferrari are going to do well?
They got pole in 2019. It's a good track for their car.
They had good engines then, didn't they? They had working engines. They didn't have one out of bloody Fiat Punto like they do now.
That's a good point.
You're off.
That is a good point. It's all gone. We've all gone off the rails. I knew coming into this was going to happen. It was going to go to shit in some way, shape, or form. But no, this has been. When you have
MotoMeerkat on the
there you go. There you go. This has been great fun though. Do you want to take us and just say what you do on your channel and plug that a little bit?
Oh, mate, the channel goes about as well as this episode has gone. Basically, I just chat absolute shit about Formula 1. I do whatever I want, really. I have a podcast called the Chatterbox Podcast. Comes out every 2 weeks where I interview very interesting guests, which I'm sure William will be on very soon. So make sure you go and check that out. And otherwise, every Friday I post a video just talking about something Formula 1, sometimes about history, sometimes about my thoughts, sometimes about predictions, sometimes about anything. So go down below and subscribe, why not?
Cool. Yeah, and as I said, all links will be down in the description below. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Thank you all for watching as well. Let me know down in the comments what your predictions are for Bahrain, or the first Bahrain race in 2 weeks' time. But yeah, that's all from me and MotoMeerkat. Hope you have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you all in the next one.